Hello all, welcome to my YouTube channel. PUC Accountancy, first year PUC Accountancy Part 2. Here I am going to upload. Previous part under we covered the simple meaning of accounting, definitions of accounting, and some major basic terms in accounting. So in accounting world there are totally 20 major terms that it comes. Out of that, in our previous part, we covered entity, transactions, assets. These three terms we covered. The fourth term is a liabilities. The fourth term is a liabilities. Here, the liability means liabilities are it is the obligations or debts that an enterprise has to pay at sometimes in the future. That obligations is called as a liability. Liability is nothing but it is the debts or obligations which enterprises have to pay after few days or after some times. So liabilities under the types they are liabilities, entire liabilities are mainly classified into two types: non-current liability and current liability. Non-current liability, which liabilities are long-term in nature, which debts are obligations to pay in long-term basis. That kind of liabilities are called as a non-current liabilities. Major example of non-current liability: long-term borrowings, debenture, long-term bank loan, long-term provisions. The second one is a current liability. It is a simply opposite of non-current liability. Current liability is a debts which long-term in nature. Non-current liabilities are debts which long-term basis, but current liability are short-term in nature, and these liabilities should be settled within a 12 months. Major example of current liabilities are short-term borrowing, trade payable, creditors, short-term bank loan, and short-term provisions. So these all are examples of current liabilities. Then next term is a capital. ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ನ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂಡವಾಳ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ನ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂಡವಾಳ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. So this is a simple meaning of capital. Amount invested by the owner in the firm is known as a capital. Capital is also shown in liability side while whenever we preparing balance sheet, because owner and entity they are treated like a separately. Okay. Then next term is a sales. Sales are total revenue from goods or services sold or provided to the customers. ಸೇಲ್ಸ್ ನ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾರಾಟ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಸೇಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ is nothing but it is a total revenues from the goods or services sold or provided to customers. Services provided to customer, that activity is also be called as a sales. Sales, it may be cash sales, it may be credit sales. If sales activities are occurred immediate cash transactions, that kind of sale is called as a cash sales. If it is sales activities are done or deal with the credit base, then that kind of sales is called as a credit sales. Then under accountancy, next term is a revenue. These are the amount of business earned by selling its product or providing services to the customers. It is called as a revenue. Example of revenue: sales revenue. Other example of revenue is interest received, dividend received, etc. The next term is expenses. Expenses in Kannada it is called as a vecha. If you want to produce something, we have to able to bear this expense. Cost expenses, or it is also be called as a cost. Cost incurred by a business in the process of earning revenue are known as expenses. ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಅರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಸರ್ಟೇನ್ ವೆಚ್ಚನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಸ್, ದಟ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ is called as a expense. For example, if you want to manufacture machinery, if you want to manufacture ಫರ್ನಿಚರ್ನ ಮ್ಯಾನುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ we required some raw materials, we required some spare parts. ಸೊ ಅವೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ವೆಚ್ಚ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ is called as a expenses. Example of expenses: depreciation, rent, wages paid, salaries paid, interest paid, cost of heater, light charges, water charges, telephone charges. These all are major examples of expenses. ಡೆಪ್ರಿಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಒಂದು ಅಸೆಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಅದ್ರ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂದಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಆ ಡಿಕ್ರೀಸ್ಡ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂನ ಡೆಪ್ರಿಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ದೆನ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಇಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್. Spending money or incurring a liability for some benefit or service or property received is called as expenditure. So cost incurred ಆದ್ರೆ, if you want to give a benefit or if you purchase a property, it includes some kind of cost. Then that kind of cost, spending money, is called as expenditure. Example: purchase of goods, purchase of machinery, purchase of furniture. Expenditure ಅಂಡರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ there are two types of expenditure: revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. Revenue expenditure means what? If the benefit of expenditure is exhausted within a year, it is treated as on revenue expenditure. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ನ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ವಿತಿನ್ ಇಯರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಸ್ಟೆಡ್ ಆರ್ ರಿಕವರ್ಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ is called as a revenue expenditure. Then capital expenditure means what? The benefit of expenditure lost for more than a year, then it is treated as a capital expenditure. Some expenditure benefits are recovered or required to recovered, or to get a benefit it required few some years. It doesn't exhausted within a year. That kind of expenditure is called as a capital expenditure. So these all are difference between capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. Capital expenditure incurred in acquiring or improving permanent assets, not meant for resale. It may add to the value of an existing asset. But in case of revenue expenditure, it is a routine expenditure. In case of capital expenditure, it is not a routine expenditure. But in case of revenue expenditure, it is a routine expenditure incurred in the normal course of business and include cost of sales and maintenance of fixed assets. The second point of difference: in case of capital expenditure, it increases the earning capacity of the enterprises. But in case of revenue expenditure, it maintains the earning capacity. Third point of difference: it normally non-recurring outlays, but it is usually recurring item. The fourth one: it produced benefit over several years. It required more than 1 year, 2 year. It doesn't exhausted within a year. But in case of revenue expenditure, it is consumed within an accounting year, the benefit only 1 year. Thus, entire amount is charged to income statement, does not appear in the balance sheet. Then next one is next point of difference. In case of capital expenditure is an item of balance sheet. But in case of revenue expenditure is shown in trading and P&L account. Trading and P&L account. The next term is a profit. Profit in a ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಲಾಭ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಅಕೌಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್ ಫೆಮಿಲಿಯರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲರ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಯಾವುದೇನೆ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ವಿತೌಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ದೇ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಡೂ ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್. ದೆನ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್? The excess of revenue of a period over its related expenses during an accounting period, then difference amount is called as a profit. Profit in a find out mode, okay, we have one formula. Profit or loss, find out mode, okay, we have one formula. Revenue minus expenses. Whenever we apply this formula, if result is positive, then result is called as a profit. That means here revenue is excess or over to the expenditure. If result is negative, then result is called as a loss. That means if expenses is over to the revenue, then result is automatically it comes negative. Then that one is called as a loss. For example, our revenue is 10 lakh and expenses is 5 lakh. Automatically the 5 lakh is a profit. Otherwise, if it is revenue is 10 lakh but the expenses is 12 lakh, then automatically 1 lakh is negative. No, this negative is nothing but loss. The next one is a gain, a profit that arises from the events or transactions which are incidental to the business, which are not a normal business base. The term is called as a gain. Today this much is enough fun. Thank you for watching.